Hey, so I wanted to give a quick overview of my Leatherman sheath design I've been working on. It is a modular holster slash sheath that is has a bunch of different attachments, as you can see here. I've been working on, and I want to talk through the feature set here. So first off, we'll start with the actual holster here. So this is the base piece component. So you can see we've got a modular back attachment portion as well as the sides. So in its base configuration, you'd take your, in this case, I like the clip. That's pretty much what the only thing I use, because I like the convenience of being able to pop it on and off. And you take that and you can just slide it on, and it is pretty difficult to pop on there. So I'm going to do it off camera here for a second. Now, the reason it's a little tricky to get on there, I just needed to use two hands. It's just because we don't want it coming off, right? I don't want it popping off while you're using it. So it's very difficult to get on and off, and that is very much intentional. Now, because it's modular, if my belt doesn't fit, or if your belt doesn't fit this very well and you want to use a different one, I've got both thinner and thicker options. This one is both longer and thicker. You can see the difference there between those two. There's also this design, which sits more flush and closes and attaches. This is going to be stronger, but you can no longer slip it over your belt. The nice thing about this one, at least the way I like to use it, so I've added this cutout here, which allows, basically, once it's on, you can kind of pivot it up and pop it off pretty easily. Otherwise, if you just pull straight up, it won't budge at all. The plastic is touching the bottom part of the holster. So it snaps on, it clips onto your belt well, and then to get it off, you can kind of rotate it to pull it off. So that's the belt attachment. And then, as you can see, I've got a handful of these different side implements laid out here. My preferred one, I use a TS10 from Workos, this little flashlight. Now, I do have the interest of making additional flashlight mounts for other types of flashlights, but this is the only one I really have that works well for this application, that's small enough. So if there's a lot of interest in this, I could easily get more and add some more designs. But that just snaps on, and there it is. Now, it's pretty well on there, but it can pop off. And so one of the newer features I added was this relief here that allows for some compliance of the little snap fit. There, so you can see those tabs. There's a little bit of compliance there, and so the way this works is if you get it in, you want to lock it in. You can also get these locks, and they just slip into that gap, and they make it much more difficult to get it off. So now it's locked in place because it kind of raises that depression into that spot and no longer allows it to push down and out of the way. So you can, and those just friction fit in there. They work pretty well. I've not had issues with them at all. The next thing I've got is this an additional side piece. It holds two bits as well as a bit extender. So you can use that with anything, and that, again, slides on, snaps into place. And then you can lock that in, or you can leave it as is. Sorry, my cat is getting into the camera here. So that would be that one. And these, I've tried to make this as compliant as possible so that you can pop the bits out by hand. So if you can't get them out by hand, you can always pop out like the can opener or something. Works really well to just pull these out too. If it's a fresh print, depending on the filament or whatever. Sometimes they can be a little tricky at first, but as they wear in, they should get easier to pull out by hand. The nice thing about them being flush like this, those are not going to knock out. They don't catch on anything. I've tried other designs to do this to do methods of bit attachment that haven't worked out nearly as well. This one seems to be what I like the most. Now, it is a little bit more limited. You can only do, in this case, 2, or in this one, 4. But those are your options. Now, on this one, I've also added you can put in your Swiss Army knife. If you've got a Swiss Army knife, you can do tweezers and a toothpick from the Swiss Army knife in there. And so when you attach that, you've now got those additional implements. Now this one is a little more snug. I'm not going to put it on right now just because I'm on camera, but one of the things I have found, if you're printing your own and you have issues getting it assembled, something simple, a simple piece of wood here like this, and a hammer can go a long way towards getting them on and off. One of the struggles is most of the parts all print vertically, which means there's layer lines that run across, and the same as the holster, and they kind of interface with each other and cause it to lock in a little bit. And so dialing in the tolerances can be pretty tricky. That's why I've got a handful of different tolerance options if you're printing your own to try out. But if things do get stuck too much and you can't just brute force it off, a block of wood with a hammer will both protect the parts as well as take it on and off. But the reason this one's a little more of a struggle is due to these clips. I've got some artifacting on the back here that cause it to not sit quite as flush. So I need to work on that a little bit more. I may thicken it up. If I thicken it up a little bit more, that's going to take away some of that artifacting. It should come off easier. But anyway, so the next one I've got here, you can see I've got the little, I can't remember what the small Swiss Army knife holder, and it just slips in there and snaps in. The little tabs there, so you can carry that if you wanted to use that. Could come in handy perhaps. And then I've got a carpenter pencil holder. I thought this would be pretty handy, just for if you need to mark. You don't have to use it for carpentry or stuff, but depending on what trade you're in or how you're using your Leatherman, a writing utensil is always handy. And these are simple, easy to attach, and they don't roll away from me, so that's nice. So this one I've also got. This one holds other stuff. It's really not terribly useful for the Leatherman Arc, but it's more for like the P4 or the P2. But there's like a bit attachment, bit extender adapter that you can use with the P2 and the P4. That's pretty common on like Amazon and AliExpress and things, that will fit in this. But so that is the base parts. So if you're printing this out, you're going to need at least the core base, one back part, as well as, assuming you want side components. It's kind of the point. If you don't want the side components, then you don't really have to do anything beyond the back and the base and the holster. But if you want the attachments, you can do 2 attachments. Now, when you're first starting printing, the first things that I would print, if I push this aside here, first things that I would print would be these tolerance test pieces. I don't know if you can see those. So they clearly specify the tolerance that I have, and that's the tolerance basically between these side dovetails. And so this is basically just a cutout of this section of the Leatherman, or of the holster, I mean. But you can then take your piece and test the fit. Now 0.2 is pretty snug, depending on how, I prefer to over extrude a little bit because it makes things stronger. And so I struggle with 0.2. Mine, I think what I'm currently running, this one I believe was 0.3. It's been a little while since I printed it now, but and so you can see 0.3 fits on all right, and you can test out the snap fit too. The parts that are in the online now also include the little cutout in the part down here. So they've been updated since these were printed, but my printer's actually been down for a few weeks. I've been fighting it, trying to get it back up and running. So test print one of those and one of the side pieces you want, and just test out the fit to get what works best for your setup, and then print the corresponding holster that matches the tolerance. So there's going to be 3 holster options. Pick the one that matches the tolerance that you liked the fit of, and then you can print off the rest of the pieces. So the holster is the only thing that gets changed based on tolerances. Everything else remains the same, and then you can print off a couple of the locks if you want them. They're not necessary. I mean, I don't tend to use them. What I would say is you could go without them, and if you find that they're, like, if you're going to take things out and you find it coming loose, you could always put them in. Or you can just run with them if you're pretty confident what you like on your holster. One of the things that I like about this setup is I can kind of swap between things. So if I pretty much always carry my flashlight, the Leatherman, but depending on what I'm going to be doing, you know, I could take the bit, this simple bit. This is great around my house because I have some Torx bits on screws, and I've got some square head bolts and screws as well. However, if I were like going camping or something where I'm not really going to need to turn many screws, I could bring the bonus small Leatherman, or sorry, the small Swiss Army knife. Or if you're going to be doing something where you really don't need a flashlight, you can attach both the pencil and like the screwdriver or whatever. You can basically do whatever you want. Now, if you buy the 3D models online, I've also added the geometry for how to make the back grooves fit, and so as well as like a blank template that you could print and test yourself, so you can basically design your own components if you're into design work at all. Should dramatically simplify what it takes to make your own side attachments. The goal was to make it modular so that people could add to it and customize it, right? We don't all have the same components that we want to attach, and that's the primary driver behind me making this, is to open up the door for everyone's different use cases. So that's what I've got from the feature set. All right, a couple more things to cover here. If you are printing your own, especially with there's a few pieces of support material that I've basically built into the parts to get them to hopefully print well. So this would be one of the belt clips, and for this piece you can see we've got, there's not, the slots are kind of in there, but I've got these supports built in. So to get those out, we can just snag something like the awl and stick it in that slot and just pop it up. Now, I usually end up cleaning it up with like a utility knife or a hobby knife here. So I've got these small tabs. Even with just the flat going across there, I had issues where it kept drifting away because it was just one layer thick. So I added these little tiny tabs right here, if you can see them, that have to be kind of removed as well. So just kind of make sure that all of that stuff is removed, and you'll have a better time. I checked to make sure it's flush. You can see I still have some there. It's really hard to do here on the camera with the camera pointed at it through the camera lens, but that is basically what needs to be done. So this part, the belt loop and clips will have those types of support. The holster itself, I don't have one here that hasn't been removed, but you can see it prints on this face here. So it's on the bed plate like this, and that gives more strength to to where the clip attaches. Because if my layer lines are totally, if I printed it like this, then my layer lines would be running this way, and this back piece can just snap off. So because of that angle, I've got some supports. I've got a brim built in, as well as supports for this edge and this edge, so that you don't need supports you don't need to turn on supports for anything. It's all part of the model. You'll have to cut off the supports. They're modeled straight into it, so they won't just like they're not going to be quite as easy to snap off. I would suggest, again, trimming them off with a knife or something. I think the last thing I wanted to hit on here that I didn't yet talk about was the way the actual Leatherman attaches. So you can see it snaps in there pretty well, and it doesn't fall out. So I've used if you've looked at other holsters online, I've got this groove in the back, and it is keying in on the locking springs. And when it clicks down in, they open up, and that's what retains it. So you have to get past that tension in order to remove it. So it's secure in there. It's not going anywhere. I've never had it even come close to falling out. So I'm sure there's a way that someone could do something, but if you're being that hard on it, chances are it was, and you could knock it out of anything. So this will hold up really well. It is, however, still just 3D printed. There are limitations of 3D printed filaments. Maybe if you print it out of something really intense, tough, like nylon or polycarbonate, it's going to be a bit more tough. I did attempt some nylon prints, but they didn't. I think my nylon is still, I don't know if I'm just not quite getting all the moisture out of it or what, but my nylon doesn't do overhangs as well as this is ASA. So I'm struggling with the nylon, but if you get it to work, I'm sure it would work great for you. Make it a little more tough. Last thing I wanted to mention, the side pieces. So like, let's say we throw this guy on there. If you take the side components on and off over and over again, if you do a lot of swapping, you are going to wear out the attachment grooves here, and it's going to slowly wear away at the plastic potentially. And I have a feeling, and now I've had some earlier ones in PLA where after some time they got a little rattly. So I was trying to experiment with other plastics to see if that would hold up better. I've had pretty good luck with this ASA one. However, the tighter the pieces fit initially, so I used the 0.3 tolerance. The tighter they fit initially, the longer they're going to be, the more on and off attachments you're going to be able to do. I added the reason I added this compliance in here was to try and lower some of the stress on the attachment, so that because there's compliance built in, the parts don't have to there's not as much friction and wear on the parts. They can just kind of comply instead of stress as bad. And that's also why I've got the locking tabs. So if it does start to get a little bit looser and rattly, the locking tabs should just push right in, and hopefully that can help with that. Now, the locking tabs can be pretty hard to get out by fingers. It can be done, especially it's easier if you put your seam on the edge there. But you can always just grab something like the awl. I don't know how much people like the awl, but it can be pretty handy when you just need a somewhat sharp edge that's not going to hurt you, and that'll just pop that right out. So that is how that works. Now, the way I've got this, you can see you can keep the pocket clip on there as well. I still carry it in my pocket without the holster sometimes, from time to time. So the pocket clip will have to go out, obviously. If you run with the pocket clip on the other side, it will not work with the current design. I did experiment with designs where the pocket clip could be attached here and it would still work, but I had problems with in order to make it compatible with both blade orientations, the Leatherman, it got more loose and more rattly, and that kind of drove me nuts. So I decided to take that feature out and have it basically work one way more effectively. That being said, I could probably change it back if there is a demand for people wanting the knife blade on the outside instead of in the back. So right now the knife is in the back. So I could, if people want it, add the knife, a version with the knife blade on the outside. All right, well that's all I got. So hope you guys like it. I'd love to see what ideas people have for different side implements. I've made most of the ones I've got ideas for. I've had other ideas that didn't work out very well. I thought this one holds 8 bits, or sorry, not 8, but yeah, 8 bits. And the intention was you could push them out and kind of pull out the bits, and it works okay for some of the spots, but a lot of times I just can't get the bits out. Like these down here at the bottom, I just can't get out. So this is still a work in progress. I may get this to work at a later date, but right now it's not quite ready. I've also got, I've wanted to have a normal hex bit holder, and I tried a lot of iterations on this design, trying to get the bits to be easy to pop in and out. This one's too easy, so that one was a bust. I think some of these other ones, they were either too easy or too hard. I had a TPU strand in the back there that was hopefully helping it, but if I could get it in, then generally I couldn't get it out by hand. But this one actually feels pretty good right now. But so some of these they're easier than others, but so I do intend on finishing this one hopefully once I get my printer up and running again. But I also experimented with different filaments too to see if that would make a difference on how easy things were to go together. But anyway, hope you guys like it. I'd love to hear more feedback. So thanks. Bye.